Hey guys, back in Handyman here. My wife bought a little island kind of thing. That's something right here. It is white single door, double door table. Bought it for a friend though, and I kind of figured the friend would want it put together. So I'm gonna go ahead and slap this thing together, and I'll kind of show you guys how to put it together too. I know that this stuff can be kind of a headache sometimes, so why not make a video about it? Sound will be turned off on this because I'll be jamming out in the background. You might see me dancing. It's one of my New Year's resolutions. Might see me dancing while I'm putting it together. But I'm sorry, you can't hear my music, I guess, because nobody wants to hear the cool shit. Everybody gonna be like, oh no, he paid somebody else's music. So, first things first, you get it all out of the box, right? Then we have these threaded screws. On one end they have the threads, and the other end kind of goes inside a lock nut. I use some Titebond wood glue, and I just dip the end of the screws into that. Kind of helps secure the wood. And since it is particle board, sometimes they do pull out a little bit, and if you have the wood glue on the tip of them a little bit, it will kind of help deter that. And even if they do pull out a little bit, the wood glue will kind of hold it after it dries up really good. I don't really endorse these particle board things, but yeah, you see where I'm going at with that. But you put them across the top like I did there at the beginning, and then we have the 3 here at the bottom. After you get them all tightened down, you didn't see me tighten them down. I edited that out. Try to make the video not so long. But after you get them tightened down with your screwdriver, you just use a regular Phillips head to tighten them down. Then you just wipe the glue up on them. Up here at the top, you got the 2 on each side. Now the slots on them sides go towards the back. Right there, you can see there's a CL and a CR, which means right and left. The wheel part goes towards the front of the side, if that makes any sense. Because the side of the drawer wheels into that wheel, if that makes any sense. Then each one of those have 3 little screws. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, there are little indents where the screws go. So, I mean, they show you where to go. It's just they're not pre-drilled all the way. And then this, of course, is the top, the butcher block looking top. It's not really butcher block, but, you know, it's a good sturdy piece of wood. And then you put those 6 pieces in there, which again are those threaded screws at the bottom that just screw into it. And I use the wood glue again, so I have to wipe it off. And this right here, I thought was pretty cool because it's a little piece that you can screw into the wall to keep the cabinet from falling over. So if you have kids or something that like to climb on your cabinets, well, you put this on and it screws into the wall and it won't pull over. Now these are the sides we're back on here. And we put those, a couple more of them screws towards the back. And this is the other side of the sides, actually. Well, these ain't the sides. This is a couple of the shelves. I thought they were sides at first, but they're not. It's like the second and the very bottom shelf is what we're working on right here. Just like that right there's the top of the cabinet doors. That's the magnet. And you screw them in with the little screws. You don't tighten the screws all the way. That way you can adjust it to where it's a little bit tighter. And after you flip them over, there's a couple screws on the other side that go in there. Just like that. Make sure you get them good and tight. And if you don't get them good and tight, or if you try to screw them in a little crooked, it'll tear out a lot of that wood. So you got to be really careful what I like to do is when I start to screw them in, I go backwards on screwing it in a little bit and then screw it in. That way it's straight into there. And after you get those shelves done, you pull up the doors here. I went ahead and put on the door handles and the door hinges. You gotta make sure that you're doing it the right side because, you know, if you put the door handle on the wrong side, the hinge holes will be on the other side. So, and you see that little hole there at the top? That's where a little metal plate goes. Right now is the best time to put those metal plates on. That is definitely something I forgot to do. So, therefore, I had to fight with it later when I put those on.
Add magnet plates here.
Right there.
I didn't, and it's easier at this time.
Then this right here is the piece that goes onto that second top. These are those barrel nuts. Well, I don't know if they're barrel nuts, but they're slotted and they have an arrow. The arrow points towards the hole that the bolt is going to come through. And you just stick them in there. And then you slide the piece onto those bolts that we screwed on earlier. And then you turn it about a quarter turn, half turn. It makes it good and solid. Just like on this one here. You put in your barrel nut. That's what I'm going to call them. Make sure you have the arrow facing towards where the bolt's going to come through the wood. And then you put it on there like that. And then you pull out your screwdriver and you just turn it to half turn. And it locks it down. It would be nicer if these barrel nuts had like a lock on them when you got them to where they need to be. Because they can come back off. And anytime you have these particle board cabinets, if any of the nuts or bolts get kind of loose and it starts wobbling around, they do not lock. So therefore the whole cabinet could start wiggling back and forth, and it makes it to where the particle board starts to come apart. Then after I got the two pieces together, there's the one piece that goes from one side to the other, and then you have this little, it's number 10. It's like an 1/8 inch piece of wood that you slide down in there. Then you get your dowel rods, the thick ones, and put them in. There are 4 on what we're going to call the top. And then there's 2 on the bottom. Now these are the actual sides. See how I was saying that one's the bottom shelf and one's the top shelf? Well, that's what I was talking about. And you remember you screwed them bolts into it there that go into where the lock nuts go. And then the other holes have the dowel rods in them. So it makes it a pretty sturdy deal. I was overall impressed about how sturdy this thing was. And then they give you these little white stickers to stick over the nuts so that you can't see the barrel nuts or whatever you call those things. Kind of hide it. So that was definitely nice. Something to kind of hide them. See, you can't even see where they're at now. You can't, and there's a couple up there at the top, remember? Then we flip it over to do the other side. You gotta be careful because it's not a solid unit yet. And if you're too rough with it, it'll make it fall apart. Then you put the other side of the back on. Just slide it in there. And I always put the wood glue on the dowel rods. Kind of help hold it in. And you got the dowel rods in the same spot as you did on the other side. So, this stick pretty good. And then you put the other side on. Get everything all lined up, and then it should just pop right on there. Then you put all your barrel nuts in so you can secure the sides to the top and the bottom. They just snap in. I mean, the holes are perfect size for them. And you go through and you tighten up each one of those screws. And it sucks, as you tighten it, it does suck the side down. So if there's any kind of gap that you're kind of worried about there, when you tighten them barrel nuts, it sucks it down. And you stand her up. Now we got the sides done. We got to put our little dowel rods in the top for the top butcher block looking thing. I wouldn't really call it a butcher block because I don't think it's real wood that goes on the top. But it's pretty looking, I guess, if that's what you're into. And after you got that on there, you'll go through and put all your barrel nuts in it. Of course, just like the whole rest of it. I was actually impressed about the sturdiness of this after it was all complete. So, I mean, usually I wouldn't really endorse buying the particle board cabinets. But if you're going to buy one and put it somewhere not moving around a lot, this seems like it'd be a pretty good little unit to use. Just got to make sure you get all these barrel nuts really tight, because you don't want the cabinet wiggling around. As soon as it starts wiggling around, then the cabinet's going to start falling apart. Don't forget to put any of your little white stickers on there, because you don't want anybody to see your little nuts. You don't want them nuts shining out and making everybody see it. Now, in here, it isn't so crucial because this is the inside of where the door goes, or the drawer, I should say. So, nobody's really going to see that anyway, because you're going to have a drawer. It slides in and out right there. So, but I'm kind of a stickler for details, so I make sure I put all the stickers on my little nuts. I don't want anybody seeing my nuts in public. You got, you know, when you stick them on there, sometimes you can get it off a little bit. That's what I was doing right there, is I actually missed the nut a little bit, so I had to pull it back off and put it back on there. Big old pain in the booty. Now, of course, we get to put the doors on. So when you put the door on, I took a piece of cardboard and cut it to make it to where I could double it up and raise it a little bit. Because if you just slap the doors on there and screw the screws in, you're going to be all crooked, and when you close the doors, sometimes it might catch on the bottom or the top. So I put the cardboard underneath the door while it's closed and reach my hand in there and tighten the screw. And then I'll open the door, and then I'll tighten them the rest of the way and put the other two screws in. It's just an easier way to kind of line it up and make sure everything's even. And then you got that right there. See that magnet at the top? That right there is when I realized I didn't put the metal plate on. And this is what I was talking about when I said it's a lot easier to put those metal plates on while the doors are off. Because I actually had to run the screw in and pull the screw back out before I could even put the plate on, because Like I was saying earlier, these holes aren't completely pre-drilled. So you have to make the hole before you put it in. Then after you get the doors on, that's what that looks like. Good and solid. Now we're working on the actual drawer itself. You have a couple more of these screws that go in. It's not like your regular drawer. Usually your drawers, you just glue them together. You have the four sides. Well, this one has more of them screws that go through. So, I mean, if it starts to come apart, I guess you can retighten it a little bit with those barrel nuts or whatever you call them. It's not necessarily my favorite kind of thing. And then it does have that dowel rod right there in the middle. That's the one dowel rod that is smaller than all the rest of the dowel rods. And it has a center support on the drawer. So it is a little bit heavier duty drawer than, if it just had the flat piece of wood that goes in there and nails to the bottom of it. You'll see what I'm saying. These are those barrel nuts I was telling you about that you slap into the holes like that right there. And they have an arrow that points towards the outside where the screw comes through and goes into them. And you make sure that your slot for your bottom of the drawer is pointing inwards before you tighten these up, which makes sure that, there you go, you can see me dancing, getting down with it. Got to dance for that new year. Got to dance it. But yeah, you make sure that the barrel nuts are good and tight whenever you get done putting these on. And then there's the bottom. You can see that one center board is kind of a support for the bottom, which is better than, if the drawer didn't have the bottom support, that would start to sag eventually. If you put a lot of heavy stuff in that drawer, it would start to sag, and that would suck. And on the back of the drawer, it just has these really long screws. I do not like these screws to fasten a drawer together when it's a particle board drawer. Because, once you get tight, if you get too tight on that particle board, it'll start to pull out the wood. And when it starts to pull out the wood, then you have a weak joint. So you never want to use an impact driver to run these screws in, and especially on the back of this where they go into the grain. Well, if there was grain, that's the problem. There ain't no grain. It just pulls out the wood. So after you get those on there. All right, guys, here we go. My battery went dead. I get a new phone in the next couple days. I shouldn't have that problem anymore. But I put in the shelves. Put it in the drawer slide. And I put these things in. They're little plastic things, and then they have screws that go in. You put two on each side, except on this side. Now, when you get done, you do have a lot of extra parts, but that's nice in a lot of instances. Not too many extra parts, just, a couple of each bolt. And then this up here, you can actually adjust behind this drawer. There's a screw that you can adjust. Here, let me show you. You can adjust that screw to fasten it to your wall so it don't fall over. So that's kind of a nice feature. Something about the drawers, though, I don't like how the drawers are the particle board just like everything else is. Sooner or later, the drawer rails will, if you get it real wobbly, or if you don't get stuff tight enough, or if you tighten everything down too much, you'll strip it out. That's what I don't like about particle board, is it's very easy to pull out, and if you get it wet, it'll ruin it. So, I put the wood glue on all the screws and stuff to maybe help keep it from backing out and all that. It's not a bad piece of furniture. I just need something with a little drawer and doors. But this is what it is. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and share, please.
Thanks for watching. If you would like to help support the channel, check out the links in the description. They are my recommended items, as well as some of the things in the video. If you purchase through the provided links, a small portion of that goes back to me. Like, subscribe, and share.
Hey man, while you're at it, check out my other YouTube channels. The Stay Home Dad, The Back End Handyman, The Dorcher Family, and The Average Stoner. Just a little bit of what I do from day to day as a stay-home dad.